Alright, welcome back to my 1972 Datsun 510. I am at the point where I really need to paint the rocker panel, however I don't have all the chemicals I need in order to do the painting. So I'm at a little bit of a pause there while the parts I've ordered are coming in. So I'm going to look at whether I want to get into this panel and replace it as well. So I'll be looking at this panel and then perhaps cutting out this whole entire section right here on this back fender. Well, that's what we're going to be looking at today.
Alright, so this first song is called Fiction by Andromeda. I'm actually going to show two songs from them today. So the first thing I do is take off the bumper. This was held on by 4 bolts because I hadn't ever put on the side bolts. I just put it on to transport it to Colorado whenever I lived there, and then I forgot that I'd only had 4 bolts on it. Next I went ahead and got down the new fender. This was stored on the ceiling so it would keep it out of the way. As you see, it's not the entire fender, it's a good portion of it, but I got to figure out exactly what I need to cut off of the car in order to replace it. I realized that in order to get a better estimate, I really need to remove the things from the fender, so I went ahead and removed the light. I then realized I needed to remove the rear lights. These are held on by 8 bolts that are 8mm, very small. But in order to get to that, I need to clean out the trunk. This is where I've been storing a lot of my parts as I've been working on the car. So I've got to clean that out and then cover some of that area, so that way I don't get a whole bunch of nastiness in the trunk. But I start by removing the light. Again, those are 8mm bolts. I then went ahead and put those nuts and washers back on that light housing, so that way I don't lose them. I've got a new drop pan for this portion of the trunk, so I realized that trying to save this piece and cut it very cleanly really wasn't necessary. So went ahead and did a little bit of cleaning and vacuumed up after the fact. Then go about trying to remove that piece from the trunk. Drilling out the spot welds wasn't working very well, so I ended up using a cutoff wheel and then a chisel to sort of bust these different areas loose right around the different spot welds. It actually worked pretty well. Early on in this project, I actually replaced the driver's side. I replaced the passenger side. Same piece, only to realize that I did it wrong. So I'll be fixing that whenever I go to the passenger side to remove that rear quarter, but that's still probably a couple months off. I tried to use heat in order to remove and release the weather stripping, only to find that weather stripping was very difficult to take off and was going to take me a very long time in order to remove it as one piece. I looked it up online, it was about $20 to replace, so I went ahead and ripped the piece out so that way I could just continue to work. I'm now using a spot weld drill bit. This was bought from Harbor Freight. It's a reasonable tool. I'll tell you that I found you want to go very slow with it, so that way it really bites into the metal. Once it bites into the metal, you can increase the speed, but you still don't want to go very fast whenever you're doing this. All in all, this portion, removing the spot welds, probably took about 30 minutes. Again, trying to go very slow and very deliberately. And there's a couple of them that I just had to end up using a real drill bit to remove. The good thing is I will be able to use the spot welder and put in the new fender. The vertical piece there on the side of the fender, I actually couldn't get using the correct spot weld drill bit, so I ended up using just a normal wide drill bit to sort of start it before breaking it loose. Hey look, a new song by Andromeda called Weekend. I then went ahead and tried to use the grinder to cut out as many of the parts as I could, and then actually went along the edge here, sort of cut the piece out so that way I could peel it away from the fender so I could make some traces for the new piece on the old fender towards the front. It took a lot of courage, I'll be honest, to cut on the fender. I then had to do a little bit of straightening on the wheel well arch there to make for sure that it would fit in place.
Alright, so I sort of got the fender where I want it. I'm going to have to see about cleaning up this area of the car and seeing whether I can clean up this as well and over here. But that's going to be hand-formed parts because I don't have parts to replace with here. So, but I do have parts to replace this. So I've cut out, or I've made a line where I think I should cut out. I'm going to give myself a little bit more room here just to make for sure I don't have to make up a huge gap. But I think this will come off in one piece, and then I'll be able to clean up all around in the back side here and clean up in the car. So let's get to cutting. A little scary.
For this part, I went ahead and used the 4.5-inch angle grinder with just a simple cutoff disc, and ended up leaving the outer skin of the wheel well alone, so that way I could try to rebuild it in the future. I also started test fitting the drop panel, which required me cutting off the rest of it from the wheel well. I then used my 4.5-inch angle grinder with the grinding disc, just clean out and trim down the welds that were still left on the inner trunk surface. I haven't actually cut out all of the different parts on the inner part of the back panel. I'll do that later, but as you can see from the rust, it's fairly extensive. I ended up, I'm gonna need to rebuild the inner structure of the rear wheel well. And now I'm cleaning up. I actually find it really helpful that I clean up at the end of every single day. This helps me ensure that I can get Danielle's car back in the garage and have a good place to park.
Ugh. Well, today was a successful day. I went ahead and cut off the rear fender, drilled out a lot of spot welds before I did that though, and generally tried to do a good job rather than just sort of the hack job that I sort of felt like I did with a couple of the panels that I replaced there. I've got this piece pretty well close to cut down. I haven't cut down the last little bit of this. This piece is going to have to sort of come down a little bit and then also sort of rotate in. But before I do that, I need to rebuild the inner structure. So I'll be pausing on that while I figure out how exactly I want to rebuild it, because this last wheel well here needs to be repaired before I do anything like that. I also went ahead and hit this area with a wire wheel just to see what we were working with. You can see there's a huge amount of corrosion here. I'll be cutting this piece out and then forming a piece to go there. I'm thinking what I'm going to end up doing is making a tube, like a round tube that I'll form it around, and I'll go ahead and cut that out as I think it needs to go, so that way it sort of matches this. But I'll cut here and a couple other places that are in the shadow right now. But it actually came out fairly easily. There's a couple spots where there's brazing that I still need to remove. It was a good day though. Thanks for watching. GoPro stop. GoPro stop.
Alright, decided I'd finally set up a end screen for all of my videos. If you like what you see, go ahead and click the subscribe button. That subscribe button lets me know that I'm doing good work. Also, don't forget to set up your notifications so that way it'll notify you whenever I post a new video. Over here you're going to see my newest video. And then finally, over here is what YouTube suggests should be the next video in this series. I've got all my videos set up in different playlists, so you should be able to see and track and follow whichever projects you feel like. Thank you for watching. Get out there and work on your car, and God bless.